On behalf of Santa Clara University's Career Center, my name is Rose Nakamoto, the director of the Career Center. Welcome this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. Delighted to be with you this morning via Zoom. Certainly wish we could be in person, but just looking forward to sharing some information with you all about Santa Clara's Career Center, career resources for students, and sort of the professional development process. I see we have both prospective students and families in the room, so welcome. Again, my name is Rose Nakamoto. I've been at Santa Clara University for about 7 years, 4 years as the director. And today I'm joined by my colleagues Jen Ferrari and Moira Kolinsinski. They both lead our Employer Connections team and our Career Education team, respectively. They will be with me and with us for the Q&A that will follow this presentation. So just as a heads up, the format for today, I'm recording this morning's session. So for those of you who are still trickling in, if you wouldn't mind making sure to mute yourself. Really important you stay muted during the presentation, just so there isn't any distractions for others in the room. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for you to ask questions. I'm sure you have many as students are thinking about their future and certainly their career aspirations. So this session is really intended to be an overview for incoming first-year students and what that process looks like at Santa Clara University. Throughout today's presentation, I'm going to really cover the top 5 steps we recommend for all incoming first-year students to sort of jumpstart their career development and their professional orientation to their future. And just also to share, of course, a lot has rapidly changed in our world with the pandemic. So we will also be covering how the Career Center is pivoting to support students in this new landscape. There's a lot that we could talk about on that very topic. A lot is shifting in early talent and recruiting, but we'll cover some resources and highlights. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I hope you can all see my slides. So in the Career Center, we really strive to help students explore and launch into meaningful careers. And a pro tip here for students and families that are in the room, whether you come to Santa Clara University, which we certainly hope that you do. It's a wonderful, supportive, and holistic place to learn and to grow. This is really a 4-year process. So you're already ahead of the game by being in this session, by joining us in the Career Center. So it used to be that Career Centers were a place where you went your junior or senior year to find an internship or a job. And really, first-year students, it's time to engage starting your first year. And that really is both an internal and external process of understanding what are your values, your strengths, your gifts, and how you want to apply them to the world. And then also leveraging our really dynamic geographic location in the heart of Silicon Valley. There's innovation happening. It's not just the tech industry. Technology is really impacting every single industry, from healthcare to nonprofit to education. And so there's a lot of dynamic internship and research opportunities within the space where we live. So this is a wonderful place to come to school and learn. And the 3 questions we often ask as a Jesuit school is around vocation, or what do I love to do? What does the world needs? And what brings me joy? And the intersection of those 3 questions, the answers to those 3 questions, we hope students grapple with throughout their 4 years, because finding that place for yourself, although that can evolve over time, is really where you'll find your purpose and your vocation. I'm going to start heading into our first tip for students. For first-year students, number 1 is to utilize HANDSHAKE. For those of you who are new to what HANDSHAKE is really a fantastic place to start exploring careers and the career development process. HANDSHAKE is our job and internship platform at Santa Clara University for students. And HANDSHAKE creates a lot of ways for students to connect and engage with hundreds of thousands of employers. So along with 100% of the Fortune 500 companies, there's thousands of jobs posted for local and national nonprofit organizations and startups. So a huge range of industries represented here, not just big companies. HANDSHAKE uses AI and machine learning to create customized dashboards for students, highlighting opportunities that are really relevant for your interests. So once students, you fill out your profile. When you become a student, you can claim your HANDSHAKE account, fill out your profile, and you'll start getting recommendations for employers and opportunities. It works a lot like Netflix, where it tries to tailor recommendations for you, entertainment recommendations for you based on your interests. It will try to do that for you as well on the system if you fill out your profile. There's truly something for all majors using HANDSHAKE. So absolutely number 1 is to utilize HANDSHAKE. A little bit more about HANDSHAKE. It really is also can be your one-stop career shop. So HANDSHAKE is a great place for students to sign up for virtual career fairs. We've obviously gone virtual with all of our recruiting events this fall due to the pandemic. But all of our virtual events, our job and internship programs, you can sign up by downloading the app and finding out what's coming up on the calendar. And then you can also, of course, discover and search for jobs and internships that are right for you. We'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. HANDSHAKE is also the place where you can request appointments with the Career Center staff. We have a really talented team of individuals that have experience in a lot of different industries and areas. And these appointments can be for resume, LinkedIn reviews. If you're really wanting to explore and understand what's possible, assessment, career exploration, and planning, or if you're really ready to dig into an internship search or mock interviews, our staff are here to support you. More about HANDSHAKE, the job search isn't just a one-way street, and oftentimes I think students don't realize that employers are also using HANDSHAKE to reach out to you directly. So a pro tip here for you is to complete your HANDSHAKE profile, kind of like completing a LinkedIn profile. So you'll have your picture, potentially upload a resume, include leadership, class projects, sort of like you just would upload your resume, because 80% of students who complete their profile on HANDSHAKE get messages from recruiters. So just a quick stat pulled by Moira Kolinsinski, who leads our employer connections team. In the month of September alone in 2020, 8,600 messages were sent to Santa Clara students in HANDSHAKE by employers. And that can be anything from an invite to apply for an internship, inviting you to a virtual summit on their campus, to expressing interest in your background based on what they're hiring for. So please fill out your HANDSHAKE profile. Okay, number 2 is to utilize the Career Center's first year student guide. And so what we've created on our website, you can actually find this guide by going to the Career Center website, just Google SCU Career Center, and you'll see at the top menu, it says career guides or career guides by class year. And for our first year students, this provides some quick steps on this first page, like what we recommend all first year students do. And on the back side of this guide, it's also digital, ways that you can explore, gain experience, build skills, and some resources connected to that. So one pro tip here is to make sure, a lot of times I think a common trend that we see with first year students is they want to skip right to the internship search. They want to go right, I'm looking for a research internship search. Santa Clara students are very engaged and very motivated around professional development experiences, which is fantastic. But oftentimes students skip the step of exploring and understanding who you are and how to apply those skills to a variety of career paths. So really a first step for every first year student really should be exploring interests. And we have a lot of great resources for that. And certainly our team can support you in that process as well. Okay, number 3 is to create a college resume. So all of you probably had to create a CV or a resume to apply to college. What we recommend is the summer before you start your university, whether you do this at Santa Clara or elsewhere, build a college resume. This can be used to apply for on-campus jobs. It can also ready you to prepare for applying to research positions or internships. And so build a college resume. And the way that you want to do this, usually a pro tip here is by your sophomore year of college, you want to start moving away from high school experience and have more of the experience from your university class projects, research, leadership, volunteer experiences from your university experience. But as a first year student, it's probably going to be a lot of undergraduate or high school experience. And so what you can highlight are projects, leadership, anything co-curricular, volunteer experiences, part-time jobs. So create a college resume and use our job search toolkit, which you can find from the homepage of the Career Center. And most recently, we launched VMOC. So if you come to Santa Clara University, we just launched this fantastic tool. It's an online 24/7 resume review tool that leverages data science and machine learning to give you instant resume feedback that's based on global recruiting practices and benchmark data of other Santa Clara students. You'll get a lot of really sharp insights on how to update your resume and refine it to give you a competitive edge when you're ready to apply for opportunities. So pro tip is when you come to Santa Clara to definitely upload your resume, create an account in VMOC and upload your resume to get started. Okay, so another thing to make sure that students do is to take advantage of all initiatives and events to help you explore. So when we were not in a pandemic and we had live recruiting events where employers would come to campus at Santa Clara, I always like to encourage first year students to go to those events, walk the floor, and explore what opportunities might be of interest to you. Some of you may already be directed and know that you want to work in the accounting field. Others of you might know I'm already pre-health. I know I have some interest there, or you may really not be sure where to get started. And so using these events as exploratory tools are important. And what I wanted to highlight, given that we're virtual right now, we're offering virtual career fairs, virtual meetups, industry meetups, and virtual coffee chats with employers. Santa Clara students have a wonderful reputation with employers. We are located, as I mentioned, in such an exciting geographic location. We have had really high engagement numbers with employers this quarter alone, in a way that most universities don't experience such a high volume during an economic recession. And so it's a testament to our wonderful students, I think, and our education and our geographic location. So just this fall alone, we had about 40 different industries engaged virtually on campus and recruiting so far, and we're not done yet. We have another career fair coming up in a couple of weeks. And here are some examples of the industries that have engaged. So everything from aerospace to fashion to performing arts and fine arts, nonprofits, K through 12, management consulting, software engineering. Really, it runs the gamut. So definitely make sure that you bookmark our events calendar. That's a screenshot of our events calendar on our homepage. Once you create a HANDSHAKE account, you can also see upcoming events. So make sure you're plugged in. And then here's a little bit more about some of the virtual events that we've been running. About 120, if not 150 organizations have been engaging with us through fall recruiting. So really the pro tip for you as an incoming first year student is begin your search in the fall. And so I don't mean as a first year student, you need to begin your internship search in the fall, because there's a lot of things that you're adjusting to life at Santa Clara. There's a lot of exciting leadership on-campus experiences you want to take part in, but just know when you're ready to apply for an internship, whether it's your sophomore year or your junior year, start in the fall. And these are a couple of graphics that showcase some of the recent programs where we host employers. We just had our STEM career fair with about 37 organizations. Yesterday, we had our fall career bash for arts and sciences, social sciences, and business students with, I think, over 50 employers. So those were really exciting events. We have meetups and pop-ins that are industry-based on a whole host of different kinds of industries. So again, make sure that you start early when you do start. Don't wait till the spring to find something for that summer. Start earlier. Okay, and now as I'm kind of keeping track of the time, we're about halfway through, maybe a little more than halfway through, so I hope you're all hanging in with me. I know Moira and Jen are in the chat, so if you have questions, you can start putting those in, but we are in about 5 to 10 minutes going to start to take questions, so be thinking about the questions you have for us, and we'll, to the best of our ability, be answering those. Now I'd like to transition into the pandemic, and there's a lot of questions of parents and students about, you know, how is the university pivoting to support students in this new landscape, and certainly what do career resources look like? And what we know about incoming students, this has been year over year in the last, I would say, 5 years, when we ask our first year students, and I would like all of our incoming first year students to be asking themselves this question: how often are you thinking about your future? Is it weekly? Is it daily? What we've been finding is that our first year students, I would say the majority, 80 to 90%, are thinking about their future, if not weekly, daily. We know that you're choosing your educational experience because of the way higher learning and a college degree will serve you throughout your lifetime. And Santa Clara University's education is very special and holistic. And I would say, having worked at many other institutions like Stanford and San Jose State, and community college systems, this is, I think, the only campus I've worked at that really takes the holistic approach to caring about the whole person, to supporting your formation, both in terms of academic rigor, but also caring about the way that you want to make impact in the world. What problems are in the world? What, from a social justice standpoint, what is your role to make impact? And I think that's a really special component to our education here. But what I will say is that we know the pandemic has led to many challenges for all of you. And in some ways, it's compressed how you're thinking about your future, or intensified questions about what kinds of opportunities will be available given the uncertainty that we're navigating as a society. So I would say, definitely, let's talk a little bit now about the way in which some of the trends that we're seeing in the Career Center. And I think the last 30 days, I would say in September alone, we've had about 1,500 positions, employers post active positions for students at HANDSHAKE. And that's over a 35% increase from April of 2020. So when the pandemic first hit, there was an automatic sort of decline of opportunities because employers were grappling with, do I turn my internships virtual? How do I do that and scale that up quickly? There was a lot of uncertainty about this modality of internships and full-time jobs, how to support students. But we've seen an incredible increase. And these are the top industries that are represented in HANDSHAKE of these postings. So you'll see that it's internet and software, education, nonprofit, government at the local, state, and federal level, consumer packaging and goods, computer hardware, healthcare research. So it's a really interesting cross-section. And one of the things that we always recommend students do in a time of recession, I'm actually going to skip to the slide, is to really focus on organizations that are thriving. So there are actually some organizations, unlike the last recession of 2008, 2009, that are thriving right now, coming out of or coming through COVID. And these are some examples. So if whether you're interested in working in HR or finance, or you're interested in working in a nonprofit, I would say look for functions within organizations that are really hiring. And what we've seen so far, remote collaboration platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Slack, shipping and delivery, UPS Hubs and Amazon, food and grocer, delivery services, logistics, port supply, shipping, manufacturing, education and ed tech is booming. And you think about education, you think about high schools or K through 12 or higher education. Education is so much more broad because of online learning and ed technology firms. So think about People Rover, Lexia, Dreambox, OutSchool. There's a lot of really great remote learning platforms that are hiring really rapidly. Government is also an area that's hiring at the local, state, and federal level. So we've seen a lot of ongoing engagement with government agencies in our recruiting events. So focus on where are those organizations that are hiring. And then just to kind of go back to the former slide, internships, we know if I were to ask a show of hands, how many of you are planning to do at least one internship while at Santa Clara or wherever you decide to go? That's always first on every student's list. In fact, a lot of our incoming first year students already have done an internship because they're so motivated. And if that is like news to you and you're like, I haven't done an internship yet, am I behind the game? No, you're not. But what I will say is Santa Clara is an exciting place for experiential learning. There's a lot of on-campus opportunities, leadership experiences, fellowships that you can engage in. So don't just think linearly about internships being the only way to get experience. If you are interested in internships, we do currently have, in the month of September alone, 1,600 internships were posted for Santa Clara students. And that's just the month of September alone. Usually September and October, starting to be the end of August, is a very busy time for internship postings, and again in January and February, in particular for the technical spaces. So again, start in fall. And these are some of the examples of the organizations that have posted. So everything from the US Department of Commerce to IBM to retail like Gap to Cisco, Earth Justice, US Department of State, HP, the City of San Jose, Pandora. So it was hard for me to pull just a few examples. There's a lot of exciting examples of opportunities currently posted. So now I want to talk about how to help prepare you for some of these opportunities. So the Career Center team developed over the summer a career boost, an online career accelerator for students. And this is really geared towards, because we can't be in person right now, how can we make sure students have access to the information to help them learn how to navigate virtual recruiting? And so that's what this really essentially is. We developed a season 1, which is really focused on how to navigate the new normal of jobs and internships. And we're going to continue building virtual sort of accelerator series virtually over the next couple quarters. And just to give you a snapshot of what this is, and you can actually follow that, the link down below. Sorry, the end of it got cut off, but from our homepage, you can find a direct link to this boost series if you want to get a leg up. And it talks about a snapshot for the current employment landscape, how to showcase your summer to employers. So whether you were sheltering in place with family, how do you talk about that to an employer if you weren't able to do a job or an internship, or let's say you had to help out with your family business and you did that versus an internship or a job, how do you showcase that? If your internship was canceled, how do you talk about that? So that episode really focuses on that. Fall recruiting forecast, so what to expect in terms of what's available, how to apply for jobs, and then how to prepare, really, really tactical, helpful information about how do I prepare for a virtual career fair? If I'm on video with an employer, individually or in a group setting, how do I prepare for that? Do I think about questions? How do I get my resume ready? So all of those questions are answered. And then we do a live Q&A with each season of our Career Boost with alums or employer, sort of giving tips and insights. So this again is available from our homepage for all students, and certainly our prospective students, you're welcome to look at that. In the final stretch here, I'm almost done, and then we're going to turn it over to some questions in just a moment. So the search process. One kind of another pro tip is HANDSHAKE. You can actually find this on HANDSHAKE's blog. So even if you don't have a HANDSHAKE account, students and parents, if you're interested to get a sense of the top 500 companies that are hiring college students right now, from their blog, you could just Google HANDSHAKE blog 500 companies hiring right now. And they update this list every few weeks. And I will say I've cross-referenced a lot of the companies that are listed here in our HANDSHAKE, and a lot of the same opportunities are posted. So this is a great way to get a pulse on what opportunities exist now. There's also a great blog. You can find more information on our COVID website. We have a list of RAQs, which I'll talk about in a minute, recently asked questions, recently asked career questions during COVID. You know, what does the search process look like now during COVID? And I'm gonna give you, there's a lot to talk about with regard to that, but I'm gonna give you one little snippet, which is the application process. So really, students need to set up their energy for a marathon, not a sprint. In times of economic recession, oftentimes the search process, whether it be for a fellowship, for research, for an internship, or a full-time job, will just take longer. And so setting goals is important. So how do I set reasonable weekly goals or daily goals? Maybe applying to 5 to 10 jobs a day over a longer period of time, applying for dozens of jobs to start yielding invites for interviews. So just so you know, that is not uncommon in times of economic uncertainty. And it's not because employers aren't still valuing students. And this is something I really want to drive home here is students are so important to the future of the workforce. And a lot of medium to large size companies have whole teams that just work on university recruiting because hiring interns is strategically important to the future of their organization. So they still want to hire you. There's just a lot of uncertainty about how they can do that. So there's fewer openings, which means it just may take a little bit longer. Okay, I've referenced these RAQs. So again, from our website, as a prospective student, please feel free to, or our parent or family member, to take a look. These are a lot of questions that we're getting from students ongoingly since the pandemic started. So everything from, you know, my internship was canceled or moved virtual. How do I connect to the Bronco Alumni Network to start doing some networking, to reach out, to ask questions of alums working in fields that interest me, to how do I prepare for a virtual recruiting event. So this is a great resource from our homepage. And finally, here's a picture of our team. We have a really talented team of individuals from a cross-section of industries. I'm joined by my 2 colleagues, Moira and Jen, both who are leaders in our team that help guide the work of the entire team, and excited that they're with us today to help answer some of your questions. But we are really in your corner. So at Santa Clara, there is a really strong focus on student success. And our faculty and staff really care deeply about students' well-being and success both. And I would say without a doubt that students are in really good hands, and I definitely encourage all first-year students to reach out to us, engage with our team of peer career advisors, a professional staff, get active in all of these ways. We talked about utilizing HANDSHAKE being one, making sure you create a college resume, engage in as many events, whether they be virtually or not, that help you explore opportunities. Also make sure you update your resume with VMOC, which is a new resource, and start exploring opportunities in HANDSHAKE by completing your profile and seeing what's out there. So with that, what I'd like to do, I haven't had a chance to look at the chat, but I see there's been some activity in there, and I appreciate Moira and Jen, you're providing some resources, embedding those links. Maybe what we can do, because I know we have so many folks on the call, is what I'd love to do is maybe you can certainly have your questions in chat. So if you want to unmute yourself to ask a question, would be happy to do that. Or Jen and Moira, if there have been some common questions that have come through, we could maybe start with. I'd be happy to do that.
One question, excuse me, hi everyone, that just came up that Moira just responded to, but I think is a great thing to share broadly is, you know, sometimes there are questions about where do our alumni go, what companies, what are some of the top employers who are hiring Santa Clara alums, and the LinkedIn alumni tool, which Moira provided a link to in the chat, is a great place to do some research and get some insight for, you can filter by different majors and areas of study, different types of work to get a sense of what are some of those companies. So just want to add to that, that Moira responded to, because I think for students in the variety of majors that you're considering, you can get a great glimpse of that through that tool.
I think another question that came up in the chat, and I just want to call it out, is how do internships typically blend with your coursework? And this question can be answered in a couple of different ways. I think from a very tactical standpoint, many of our students do choose to intern the majority of the time during the summer so that they can really focus on their coursework during the school year. Our students, in my opinion, humbly, are some of the most active and engaged students I've ever worked with, and I've been in the field for a long time. In addition to their coursework, they're doing leadership activities, service learning, research. There are just so many things that our students are involved with, and so during the school year, they're frequently focused in those areas, and then doing their internships during the summer. It's also not unheard of to continue a summer internship on into the school year, so that you have the opportunity to work with your employer to do maybe reduced hours to accommodate your coursework, because the quarter system is definitely fast and furious. The other way to interpret that question is the academic piece. An internship is an opportunity to really apply what you're learning in the classroom and see that lived out. And for you as a student to test the waters to see what it is that you like to do and how does that fit into those three questions that Rose was posing at the very beginning of the conversation. So, it is about getting experience. It is about, blending it with your availability and your current coursework, but it's also about that self-exploration, skill building, and giving yourself an opportunity to try on different roles in different industries to see what's in alignment for you.
Yeah, that's so great, Moira. I think a lot of times, as we mentioned before, students try to skip the process of discernment before stepping into the search process. And so one, definitely make sure you explore, use your coursework, your undergraduate coursework, use opportunities to do leadership and volunteer, get involved in as many activities as you can on campus. Don't just be so worried about getting the right internship with the right company, because it's really about using this time to explore who you are and how you want to apply those gifts to the world. And don't be so focused on needing to know the outcome just yet. You have time to get there. And most of the research suggests that college graduates now shift jobs every year to year and a half, and may have up to 5 to 10 jobs their first 10 years out of college. And for many of you who decide to go into graduate school, that certainly could be in your future path as well. So don't feel like you have to know exactly what you want to do when you graduate, because ultimately that's going to pivot and shift for you anyway. So really use this time as formation for you to build, to explore, and to get involved in as many activities and experiences as possible.
I see a question here from Adrian about how being a scholar student or an honors student might add to a resume. And I think that's a really great question. And I think there's a few different ways. Certainly it's something that you'll want to add to your resume to showcase that you're a part of a program like that, especially if you've received specific awards. But the other piece that I would really encourage you to focus on is, what are the skills that you're developing through your honors or sort of scholars courses? What are the projects that you're doing in those courses that are then helping you to gain some experiences? So it goes beyond just listing that you're an honors student or that you have a particular type of scholarship to what has that allowed you to develop? What is the story that you can tell about what you can bring based on that experience? So I think there are a lot of great ways that that you can sort of add that to your resume beyond just listing it, and really thinking about how can you showcase how that is making you a great fit for the things that you're interested in. So great question.
And I think, Adrian, you also asked a question about, you've heard from previous students who've landed a job at the end of their sophomore, junior year, and how does that happen? So a couple things, maybe first we can talk about internships. Some students do secure internships early. You know, a lot of employers do, depending on the scope of the work, do still look for juniors and seniors for interns. So underclassmen that are able to get internships, oftentimes what we see is it's because they've been very scrappy and used a lot of sweat equity to build relationships. And so if you're not a student, like certainly I wasn't as a college student that had a lot of connections in industry, leverage our Bronco network of community members to reach out on LinkedIn to ask alums from your institution how they got their foot in the door, express interest in their industry, build relationships that way. You can also message other students in Handshake. So any Handshake school across the country, let's say you want to do a publishing internship in New York and you see someone at NYU that did a publishing internship, you can reach out to them and send them a message in Handshake and just invite them for virtual coffee. So do those sort of proactive things. So the earlier classmen that get internships earlier tend to be very proactive in that way. In terms of a full-time job, I don't know, I can't specifically speak to what might that situation be, other than there are some market-driven industries. Accounting is one at Santa Clara, where there's a lot of invested interest by employers to secure students early. I've not quite heard of someone getting locked in their sophomore year, but I have heard certainly of offers happening early in more competitive industries. When I say competitive industries, I mean where employers are competing for student talent. So software engineering is one, computer engineering, and then accounting, at least at Santa Clara, is another one. I don't know, Moira or Jenna, if you want anything to offer there. That's pretty atypical. I wouldn't say we see that very often.
Yes, I would completely agree with that. It's essentially those industries where there's a stiff competition for the student talent. And as I would definitely affirm, as Rose said, particularly at Santa Clara in our accounting, those are industries where they do tend to pipeline students very early, which means starting to build relationships with them as early as their freshman and sophomore years. But I wouldn't anticipate a sophomore receiving an accounting job offer that early. I want to circle back to add to something you were talking about, Rose, that Olivia is asking around an alumni-based career network. So as Rose mentioned, one of the things that's really fantastic about Handshake is it creates a network across the United States, not just Broncos, but all campuses. But I think one of the things that's particularly special about Santa Clara University is our alumni. I am biased, I am an alum, but I will also say that in my experience having worked on our campus, I've been at Santa Clara now as an employee for about 5 years. It is very rare for me to pick up the phone and call an alum and ask them to be a panelist or to speak to current students and have them say no. I think our alums are tremendously open to connecting with students for informational interviews and providing their perspective and advice. As Rose and Jen have both mentioned, and as I highlighted above, the LinkedIn alumni tool and connecting with alums via LinkedIn is a fantastic way to get to know our alums. We also have employers who bring alumni recruiters back to connect with students. We've had some alums pop into our coffee chats this quarter virtually, which has been really fun. So there's something about the experience at Santa Clara that really builds a strong connection and a relationship, which I think is really just something valuable and special about SCU.
Let's see. I see a question here from Max about when doing an internship, is it a must that I do it in the States? So I think, and I'm curious, Moira and Rose, what your sort of thoughts are here. I think my observation would be that it's really, I think it's open sort of where you want to explore your internship opportunities. I don't think it's not a requirement that it must be in the States. Depending on what types of roles you're looking to get into, you're going to want to explore a variety of options. But I think certainly we have a lot of students who are interested in getting experience internationally or not doing their internship, within the States. So no, I don't think that's a must, but open to other thoughts here too.
I agree, Jen. I think students are laser focused on internships, and it doesn't have to just be in the States. We do have quite a few students that are interested in international experience, whether you're an international student coming to Santa Clara or you're in the United States wanting to go abroad. It really works both ways. And if you work in a global setting, whether it be for a United States-based company or not, the experience is valuable. So absolutely does not need to be in the United States. I think what's more important is that it aligns with your interests and your goals. I think another question from Patrick, does SCU receive handshake opportunities that are different from other colleges? And the answer is yes. And Moira, sorry, go ahead if you want to jump in on that one.
No, I would say, you know, any employer that's part of the Handshake network has the choice about where they're posting their positions. And, you know, when I speak with my colleagues throughout the field who work at different campuses, I think that we really benefit in our Handshake postings, as Rose mentioned, both by the nature of our geographic location, but also by the reputation that our students have in Silicon Valley. The employers that I work with and have spoken with over the years speak consistently both to the level of rigor that our academic programs provide, but also to the skill sets that our students bring to the table in terms of their communication skills, their ability to work strongly on a team, as well as the qualities of their work ethic and their humility. And that those are some things that keep employers coming back to Santa Clara, because our students are very eager to jump in, roll up their sleeves, and get right to work.
For the question about, is it typical for students to continue on to grad school and get a master's, or maybe waiting until after, I think the answer is that it really varies. We do have many students who pursue graduate education. Some do that fairly quickly if they have a clear sense of what they're looking to do. And we even have some programs on campus, such as in engineering and some of our business programs, that have 4+1 programs where you can start taking some of your graduate coursework while you're an undergrad and then add one additional year to complete both. So that is a possibility that some students explore. And then many other students are considering graduate school, and it varies. I think if in a lot of cases, students are going to graduate, go get some experience first, and really explore what their interests are, explore where they'd like to pursue graduate education, what field, what particular focus. And I think having that experience can really help to inform and create a strong foundation for the graduate education. And in certain fields, it's going to be really important to get some of that experience first before pursuing a further degree. But it's really going to be dependent on the student, their interests, and you know, what type of field and program they're going into. So great question. And definitely in a lot of cases, the answer is it sort of varies, but I think we see students doing kind of a spectrum of things here related to considering graduate school.
And I will share that Handshake published some sort of top early talent trends coming through the pandemic. And of the top 4 trends they talked about, one of them was seeing an increase in students going to graduate school. And that is definitely a common thing that we see throughout each cycle of economic recession over the last 20 years. So whenever there is a bit of a dip in the job market, we do see more students express an interest in graduate school. But to Jen's point, really, there should be a lot of intentionality behind it. If you go to graduate school and spending time to explore, to work, to learn, to engage and inform sort of who you are outside of your undergraduate experience, oftentimes benefits students well before they commit to another round of education, both from a financial standpoint and from just a time commitment standpoint.
So there's a question here that I love from Olivia, which is, could each of you or a few of you share your favorite story that embodies how a Santa Clara student has pursued a job or internship opportunity that embodies the school to you? I have a whole lot that come to mind, but I'm gonna share one, and if I have time, I'll share 2. The first one that comes to mind for me is a recent grad from our public health program who explored a couple of different options while she was a student at Santa Clara. She was a community facilitator. She did a public health internship working at a rehabilitation clinic. And she had a wide variety of interests and knew she really wanted to make an impact, but hadn't quite decided how she wanted to have that impact, because she was very interested in the corporate side of things. She was very interested in the public health side of things. So after trying a few different things, what she decided to do was actually go into recruiting, university recruiting at a company that was of real interest to her. And she did that for a year while she weighed out her options and decided if she wanted to pursue her master's in public health. And she loved recruiting, but decided that what she really wanted was to have an impact in the public health space after having that experience. And now I believe she's doing her MPH either at NYU or Columbia. And how that embodies Santa Clara for me is just the breadth of opportunity and the breadth of interest, and also the value of impact. You know, this is a student who really had a lot of interests and capitalized on exploring them in a wide variety of ways, not just through internships, but also through on-campus engagement. There wasn't necessarily a right or wrong choice. She just followed where her path took her and really paid attention and did the reflection and the work to help her really understand who she is and how she saw her impact on the world, and his living that out. And so for me, that's one of my favorite stories. We stay in touch, and I on LinkedIn, and I love watching to see where she lands. So I'll stop with that one. Oh, see, that's well timed. Olivia's interested in public health. So
we have a fantastic public health program that's interdisciplinary and really, really, really special. So it's a very popular program at Santa Clara. So that's a wonderful example. I'll share one very quickly, very similar to Moira, in that this was a student who just graduated, who I think the name of the game here was active in a whole lot of different things. So tried on a lot of different experiences. She was a web design and computer engineering major. She was the president of SWE at one point, which is the Society for Women Engineers. She worked in a variety of on-campus jobs. She worked in our office, helping us with our web. She did web design for other departments. She did a few different internships with some research-based companies. She really explored, knowing that she wanted to work in a technical space, a technical/creative space. And so I think she tried on a lot of campus jobs and internships to kind of try to figure out what the right kind of role for her. And she ended up landing as a software engineer at a big tech company here in the Valley, but she's also an entrepreneur. So during her time at Santa Clara, she started to get really invested in this idea of diversity and how to support underrepresented groups into technical fields. And so I know she did a lot of volunteer work with Girls Who Code, helping to build programs there in the K through 12 systems. And she's actually started her own platform called Opal, which is a social sort of professional networking platform that she's in the early stages of building, because she cares so much about opening up access for underrepresented folks trying to enter into different fields. So that really embodies Santa Clara, I think, because of the breadth for which she was engagement sort of being the key, and how she followed her passions and her values to help drive what she's doing. And it's not just the job that she's doing at Cisco. She's also still volunteering and doing other activities on the side. So whatever profession you choose, there's other ways also to be fulfilled and to live out your values. And I think she's doing that. So I will pause there. And Jen, I'm sure there's so many students to talk about. Our students are all so hardworking and special. And so not to say that you have to be a leader and be involved in all kinds of organizations, but I think the name of the game is to explore and to try on lots of things.
Yeah, I'll just add a really quick example, actually from a conversation that I was having with a current student earlier this week, who shared that she is involved in a student organization on campus. And one of the things that she's really been thinking about is, of course, bringing new students into her organization, but also she's really interested in professional development and kind of pulling together resources and pulling together opportunities for students. And one of the things that she shared through doing that experience is that she recognized that recruiting and that sort of space is an area that she's recognizing an interest that she has. And what I love about that is that kind of as she's thinking about what she's pursuing academically, but really through this experience that she has in a student organization, she's uncovering something that is really tapping into a way that she sees that she can make impact. And so I loved hearing that from her as she was kind of sharing that, you know, certainly through the variety of experiences you have, whether it's internships, whether it's on-campus jobs, whether it's being part of a student organization, there are so many great ways to kind of tap into what the interests are. So I think in a lot of ways it mirrors some of what Rose and Moira shared too, of really exploring those interests, trying different things, and really tapping into what you feel drawn to and how you think you can make an impact. So just to add that example too.
Well, this time has flown by. We've really enjoyed having this time with you virtually. Thank you for joining us. And wherever you end up landing, whether it's at Santa Clara, we certainly hope you decide that this is the right place for you, but wherever you end up landing, we wish you well. And certainly we'll be thinking about you. I know we're all dealing with very unusual circumstances, so just really glad to be with you virtually. I believe this session will be available. So if you want to revisit it or send it along to a colleague or a friend, the recording should be available through undergraduate admissions. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate. Someone's asking about trying to access the live stream recording. I don't know that it's available yet, but I believe undergrad admissions will be publishing all of the links once they are available. So I would say loop back with undergrad admissions. I do believe they're going to make this available. So thank you again, and I'll take care and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.